Now we're going to talk about testing.
Testing,
Testing.
One of my favorite topics.
Capital letters.
Yes. If you don't test, you're leaving too much on the table. If you don't test, you are cheating your client. I mean, that's a strong words, but I feel very strongly about that. You need to test.
You're cheating your own practice too, because then the client doesn't understand what results they've gotten.
Well, they can understand to a bit, but if you do testing and do it properly, you get a lot more done. You know where you are in the process. I mean, testing is just one of those things that just needs to be ingrained. It's just part of what you do. It's just. I mean, if you watch the videos that I've done, you'll see me testing over and over and over and over again. It's a constant process.
Yeah, and you're not talking just about 0 to 10 at the beginning of each round. You're also talking about testing methods.
Oh.
Testing methods don't take the place of the 0 to 10. It all has to be there.
Yeah.
And there's tons of opportunities in every session.
Yeah. And well, anyway, we're going to get into that, but as an overview, testing is a vital procedure not only for the practitioner but for the client as well. But we'll get into that. So.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about how clients can often dismiss results. I know that we've mentioned this in one of the earlier discussions we had, but it's a really common phenomenon almost that that clients can get to the end of a session and just really forget that they even had a problem to begin with.
Yeah, and it may have been a dramatic problem. Now, that's not always the case, but I've certainly seen it a number of times where people will have this just traumatic experience, and they're full of tears and full of anguish and anxiety and everything else. In fact, they even walk into the session in tears, just and anxious because they know they're going to be talking about it, and we'll have a good session on it. Be thorough with aspects and the like, and when they're all done, it's like they never had the problem before. They've forgotten it.
Yeah.
And they don't even know what you did.
An hour later, and
they had to pay you for it.
Right.
And
they walk out with their benefits, and they don't even recognize that you delivered them.
Yeah. Now, a lot of them do, but there are some that don't. That's how powerful the process can be. It can wipe stuff out that cleanly.
Yeah, well, and I remember when we were in Denver, you were up on stage with, I think it was Mim, one of the clients, and we've got that video in this collection. You asked the audience, does anybody have an experience with a client just completely dismissing the results? And I mean,
most of the hands went up. There were 400 people in the audience too. Yeah,
450, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so common, and so how that relates to testing is that. The more you can involve the client in the process through the use of testing, the better the client can see actually what's happening, and the harder it is for them to dismiss the results.
Yeah, in the simplest way, if all you're using is just like the 0 to 10 testing, and that's really super basic, just having the client say, well, right now it's a 10 when you first start, tap, tap, tap. What is it now? It's an 8, or it's a 7, it's a 5, it's a 3. Oh, I don't even feel it anymore. Okay, to leave it at that is that's where a lot of people will leave it. But you go on and on. What I do is I go on in the session a little bit further, and then I'll go back to this other thing, and I'll say, okay, now say so and so, or let's tune in to this previous problem, and they can't find it. I'll say, well, wasn't it a 10 to begin with?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. See, you got to remind them because they will forget this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. It was okay. So that's not only helping them understand their problem. That's you being a salesman in a way, because they're saying, yeah. And then you could say something like, well, and how much therapy did you have before that? On this. And so you start to cement that in. But that's testing just using the 0 to 10s. You see. There's so many other levels of testing, though.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I feel it for myself. You and I worked together on some of the stuff from my past not too long ago, and there was one relationship when I was quite a bit younger that I spent 5 years working on with another energy healer a long, long time ago, and I thought it was gone, but it was not.
Yeah, until we tested it a time or two.
Until we tested it a time or two. Right.
We had you do some vivid visualization. It's one of the testing methods, and say this and a few things like that. And boy, it didn't take you long before you were right in the middle of it.
It's funny that I can sit here and and recognize that process happening for myself, where I'm just saying, oh no, it wasn't really an issue.
Yeah.
Because I went for so many years thinking it wasn't an issue. We tested it, and indeed it was an issue. We tapped through it, and indeed it was an issue. But then when I got to the end of it, I'm back to, oh no, that wasn't an issue. I mean, I could feel it.
Yeah.
I can feel myself doing it.
And indeed,
I
it wasn't
spend my
just
whole day doing this.
It wasn't just an issue; it was a central issue.
Yeah.
Very central.
Right. So I mean, if you're working on yourself as a practitioner, it's really important to notice that in yourself, because then you can help the client recognize it, and you can come up with more tools to try to increase their awareness about what's happening.
So you always need to start looking for this stuff, and testing helps you do that with all these different methods that we've given you in the tutorial.
Yeah, and one thing that I think happens more often than people realize is client comes to practitioner, they do a session, they get good results as far as they can tell, as far as they've tested, which may not have been complete enough. Client leaves the room, practitioner is satisfied, saying, yeah, client's happy, client left here, perfectly satisfied, but then new aspects show up. There hasn't been any dialogue between the practitioner and the client about what to do if the issue comes back.
And they're showing up for the client outside the therapy room.
Right. So clients back at home 3 weeks later, something comes back and they conclude, oh, EFT didn't work. I'm not going to go back to...
Or it was only temporary.
Or it was temporary or whatever, but it didn't solve my problem. So I'm not going to go back to that, that method or that practitioner or whatever. I think that's really common.
Nor am I going to refer my friends.
Right. But meanwhile, practitioners writing up articles or whatever for their website saying, oh, I had this great case and we got this great result and that great result, and they don't even know that the result, that the issue came back because the client never came back to them.
Right.
And so I think extending, the conversation between practitioner and client to include, this might come back, and if it comes back, what it means is that there's more to do.
Yes.
So let me know. Let's stay in touch. Let's make sure that it's gone.
It also means that the testing that we've done to date hasn't been thorough enough.
Right.
We didn't get to enough aspects. We didn't get to enough specific things. We didn't get to enough pieces of this, so there's some left over.
Right. Right. And you don't need to put so much pressure on yourself in a session that, I must get every aspect all the time, because that's not realistic.
Yeah, you won't.
You won't. But you do need to open up the dialogue with the client to say, let me know how you're doing. If anything comes back, if any more intensity comes back, it's important that we get back together and take care of whatever came back.
So if you deal with a client, and sometimes I know a lot of therapists are sort of conditioned, not to challenge the client, for example.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's sort of, conditioning that's been there for some licensing boards and things like that. And so therefore they don't want to really test and confront them with something, with a knee wobbling question, for example, or something like that, where they really get right down, how did that smell?
Right.
Smell it for me now and tell me what that's like. But that's just one of many where you, in a way, you want to, in order to test this, you want to rub your client's nose in it.
Right.
Okay, now that maybe even seem impolite, but if you're doing it properly, the client understands that you are trying to help them, that you are trying to test and dig out what's not done yet. You're trying to, that's how you find more aspects, by the way, through testing. Aspects and testing are very linked. Yeah. So you want to constantly be curious and always adopt the idea that we're never done.
Right.
Now maybe you are, but if you adopt the idea that you aren't, you'll continually to test. You're doing the client a big favor, and every time you do that, you say, see, we found another one. Tap, 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 tap. Maybe that opens up a whole new core issue, etc. And all of this is cementing in the client how powerful this process is, how good you, the practitioner, is at it, and brings more clients back, brings their friends back and the referrals and all of that.
Right, and that sets up a perfect framework for ethical marketing. You no longer have to go out and pump yourself and come up with, fancy schmancy things to say about who you are or why you're great. Take the referrals.
Yeah, to me that that's the whole ethical marketing thing. A lot of people erroneously think, in my opinion, they erroneously think that the way to market is to put out those clever ads or whatever that bring people in the door.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's ways to do that in a hype-ish way, which I don't particularly care for. There's more powerful ways to do it with ethical language. But however you bring them in the door, eventually, if you are doing your job well and superbly, which is what you really want to get to, you don't need to run ads anymore because you're doing the job so well. You are selling it, if you will, with your testing along the way. Mm-hmm. Clients get it. They come back. They know there's more to do. They bring their friends and so on.
Their friends notice their results.
Friends notice the result. All of that goes on, and after a while, there aren't any ads necessary. I have a very good friend in Brazil. Her name is Sonia Nowinski, who never advertises anything. And she has so many clients coming into her that she has to refer some to her daughter because she can't handle them all. And she never advertises. Yeah. But she's extraordinarily good at what she does. And people just keep coming back.
Yeah, so let's compare, really thorough testing. Some of the things that I remember, we had an event where we had some practitioners demonstrating their skills on other clients, and there was one who ended the session with, "How do you feel?"
Well, it wasn't quite like that as I recall it. Okay. I'm just going to give you a little different angle on it. I was watching this session and I was asked to make a comment or two. Mm-hmm. And so what I did was I turned to the practitioner and I said, and this is because as I went through, I didn't notice any testing going on at all in this whole session. Okay, I said, well, how'd your client do? And rather than the practitioner telling me how the client did, because the practitioner should know if she's tested along the way.
There should be an extensive list of this, it was
we did this, we went from here to here on this to that, and so on. She turned and asked, well, how did you do it? And their client said, well, pretty good, I guess. Yeah. And so I asked, I said, well, I didn't hear you test one single time in all of it. Well, I heard a 0 to 10 here and there, but it wasn't really much of a test.
Right.
And so I didn't know how your client was doing as an observer.
Yeah.
Your client doesn't really know how well they did. Mm-hmm. They can have a thing or two about it. And you don't know. Now, I was trying to be nice about this and everything else. I was trying to teach as well. That's very important to understand. No testing along the way, no input. You just don't know where you are in the session. If you're dealing with somebody on a like a memory of some kind, and you think you've gotten the job done, you don't know until you test it.
Yeah.
And not just a 0 to 10 test. Oh, I think I feel better now. Oh, I think it's maybe a 3.
Yeah.
Well, get down to the nitty gritty. Let's really find out. Are you really a 3?
Right. Well, I think one challenge with really getting specific about how well did we do is, there may be some practitioners out there who are afraid of hearing, okay, we're not done yet, we're not done yet, we're not done yet, we're not done yet.
Yeah. Yeah, there can be some ego involvement in all that. And see, one of the problems with testing is you're going to find out you didn't get the job done yet.
Right.
And that's what you want to know. You see, you don't want to hide behind, I think we really did well here.
Yeah.
You really want to know how well did we do.
Right.
Okay?
And there can be a large degree of connection between practitioner and client in these sessions. And a lot of times you get to the end of the session and you're both so satisfied and so happy because of the connection. Mm-hmm. But then you forget to find out, really, nuts and bolts, how did we do?
That's right. And on the other side, talking about connection, good testing, properly done, is a great rapport getter because you're dealing with the client. The two of you are working together on 0 to 10. What is it? Okay, now say this for me and tell me how this feels. Okay, and use a previous example. And how did that smell?
Yeah.
Okay, and did you touch it?
Yeah.
What would happen if you did?
Right.
That kind of thing. And the client knows you are testing, and they respect that.
Yeah.
It may hurt. Yeah. And so on, but they respect you're getting to all the details. So that's a great rapport getter. It's a marvelous rapport getter if you do it properly.
Yeah. Well, and if it hurts, we have techniques to minimize emotional pain. So, maybe we dig something up and it hurts for a second. We can handle it.
Yeah, of course.
in easy ways. So, yeah, well, that's. I think we've covered testing.
All right, great.
I think everyone's going to get the impression that you're pretty passionate about testing, and that's one thing that's commonly missing. Is that? Would you say the one thing that we've found overall that's missing the most?
I would say that is one of the main differences between the average practitioner and the really top ones.
Well, and I guess we can talk about maybe so we've set the tutorial up as percentage levels.
Yes.
There's a lot of people who will be operating at the 20, 30, 40% level and still be producing results that most people think are miraculous.
Oh, if all you do is the basic recipe,
right,
it's powerful enough, oftentimes, to do work that you could never do before.
Right, but if you extend your skills into the rest of what EFT can really do.
Especially with getting to be expert at testing. Yeah.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Whole new doors open up.
Right, yeah.
You have no idea what you've left behind unless you test.
Right.